army can't take part in political processes, it must obey the people and the elected authorities.
Let's bring in our first guest. Richard Giragosian is the director of the Regional Studies Center, which is an independent think tank based in Armenia. He joins me now live from the capital. Richard, good to have you on the NewsHour. I do appreciate your time. As of a couple of hours ago, there were reports of an emergency meeting of the National Assembly. As far as I understand, they have refused to hold an impeachment hearing for Nikol Pashinyan. Describe for us what the political scene looks like in the country now.
Well, obviously, we've witnessed an extremely tense day in the Armenian capital with an unprecedented military intervention in the political arena. This is both unheard of and without any precedent. However, it is escalating a pre-existing political crisis. And although the government is not necessarily under challenge by an opposition, and there's little likelihood of an impeachment going forward, the only way to resolve this crisis is to move toward early election. And nevertheless, the move by the military only demonstrates the disparity, the undercurrent of dissent and discontent within now the armed forces, adding a new degree of escalating tension.
You say that the move by the military only demonstrates the disparity. I mean, I just played for our viewers and for you a soundbite from the Prime Minister. We've been seeing him out on the streets and looking at what he's been saying in terms of that the army must do its job, that the army cannot look back, the army cannot and should not participate in the political process, and that they should be obeying the people. I mean, even if they wanted to, are the military's options very limited here?
Well, the good news first. There is no reports, no evidence of any kind of troop movement or deployment. This is not, as the Prime Minister has said, a military coup d'etat. Nevertheless, the military itself is coming off an unexpected defeat militarily in the war for Nagorno-Karabakh with Azerbaijan. But the fact that over 36 senior officers have now openly opposed the government raises the stakes. What's important here as well is Russia. As the regional actor that counts, Russia remains invested in supporting the government, and the opposition is still widely discredited and unpopular. Nevertheless, we need only to move to early elections to try to diffuse the crisis.
Richard, let's talk about Russia. You bring up a very important point. I mean, we're going to play, we know what they've come out, the Kremlin has come out and said this is an internal matter. But tell me, how does Russia really feel about Nikol Pashinyan?
Well, I'll be honest. In the beginning, the success of a nonviolent revolution in Armenia was an inherent challenge to Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, with the defeat in the war, we also see Prime Minister Pashinyan very much a trophy for President Putin. And Armenia is very much within the Russian orbit.
Okay. Looking at what's been happening since the early hours of this morning, is it fair to say that Nikol Pashinyan is in the political struggle of his life now?
I would say he already was. In other words, we're in uncharted political territory. The loss of control of Nagorno-Karabakh, the loss of the war, already put Pashinyan and his government in risk. But moreover, I do think unless he takes decisive action through compromise and consensus in terms of an early election, there's no way out of this crisis.
If the only avenue here for some sort of resolution is early elections, it's going to come down to the Armenian people. What do they feel about all this?
Well, in general, I think the government still retains a silent majority of support. According to public opinion polling, we also see a likelihood that the government will come out of a free and fair election with a reduced but working majority. And it's not so much popularity of the Prime Minister, but the hatred and disgust of the opposition, which is largely linked to the corrupt former government that was overthrown. and it's the lack of an alternative that strengthens the government's position.
All right. Richard Giragosian live for us from Yerevan with the latest. Thank you very much. I do appreciate your analysis.